Toronto Blue Jays are seeing a monster season from Vlad Guerrero Jr. this year. I'm here with Rob Longley, Toronto Blue Jays sports columnist for the Toronto Sun. Rob, talk a little bit about the season that Vlad is having this year.
Yeah, Mark, it's truly been impressive, basically from the start of the season, and more significantly, I guess it's kind of what we expected from this kid just after he got his promotion back in 2019. And there's been some bumps along the road for him, but I think people tended to forget that he's just in his early 20s, and these things are going to happen. And but yeah, he's been one of the most dominant hitters in all of Major League Baseball, and more importantly, from the Blue Jays' perspective, is he's living up to, I won't say the hype, but the expectations that were with him. And good on him, because he took matters into his own hands. He obviously had some issues with his fitness throughout his pro career, and lost what people are suggesting or estimating was 40 pounds, and it's paid off. I mean, he's a much more athletic baseball player. He's always had the talent, but he's a much more athletic baseball player than we saw earlier in his career, and he's reaping the rewards of it right now. I mean, he's on pace, Mark, through the first third of this season to have the most home runs in a single season by a Blue Jays hitter. He's certainly, if he continues the pace, he'll be a threat to Jose Bautista's 54, which is the club record, but almost certainly he will top 40 home runs. And as soon as you top 40 home runs in a season, you're considered a legitimate slugger in Major League Baseball. And he's going to be a lot of fun to watch for the rest of the season because of that. I mean, we see the joy that he brings to the diamond every time he plays, but when he's producing, it's even that much more fun to watch.
So much was made of the Jays' young core, Bo Bichette as well as Calvin Biggio. What else have you liked from the young guns this year, Rob?
I think I like some of the improvements we've seen defensively, Mark. They've still had some struggles, but it's far less of an issue than it was last year defensively, where Vlad Guerrero Jr., quite frankly, couldn't play third base because he wasn't fit enough, struggled over at first base, and we saw Bo Bichette make a number of errors at shortstop. But they seem much more calm in the infield this year, and much more poised, which is paying off. And there's even some fringe talk about Vlad Guerrero Jr. being a Gold Glove first baseman. Now, I'm not quite willing to go that far yet, but he's made a lot of athletic plays over at first base, and he's really cementing himself not only as the first baseman of the present, but the first baseman of the future. And I think if you're looking at the overall picture of Guerrero, I think the comfort that he feels on the field defensively, because he took it hard last year when he made errors. He felt he was letting his teammates down. The comfort that he's playing with over at first base and the plays that he's making over at first base, I think that's helping him with confidence at the plate as well.
Before I let you go, Rob, I do need to ask you, we've seen in MLB these big contracts. Fernando Tatis Jr. got 10 years from the San Diego Padres. Should the Jays look at trying to lock up someone like Vlad Guerrero Jr. long term and keep him in a Blue Jays uniform for the majority, if not all of his career?
Yeah, that's an interesting question on a number of levels. It's going to be very interesting to see how this front office approaches that, because they're going to have 3 or 4 guys, young guys, that are going to have to be extended at some point, and basically all around the same time. If you look at a guy like Vlad Guerrero Jr., who you think is going to be the face of your franchise for a long term, and you want him to be part of it for a decade or more, then I think at the very least, you have to explore it. And I would suspect that their approach to this would have changed over the last couple of months, because until he really showed them that he was committed to being the best that he could be and being as fit as he could be, I think there were some lingering questions within the front office of what kind of star Vlad Guerrero Jr. would be. He always had the star power, but was he gonna deliver? He's delivering now. So I would think that, if he sustains this through the duration of the season, there could be some very interesting conversations within the front office and with the Rogers ownership group as to how to approach extending Vlad Guerrero Jr., not just for a couple of years, but for a Tatis-like long term.
Thank you, Rob. Be sure to read more of Rob's columns in the Toronto Sun and subscribe to our YouTube channel down below.